Jambo. Thank you for joining me for a virtual dose of vitamin Z as we bring the Detroit Zoo to you. My name is David, and I'm an education specialist for the Detroit Zoological Society. Today, we will be traveling all the way to Africa. Here in Africa, we are going to go to the east. So this is East Africa, that's Southern Africa, West, North. But we are going to go to East Africa. And here we are going to go all the way to my village where I grew up. So here, this is where the setting of the storytelling started. I've been telling stories for many years, but do you know what really triggered my storytelling? And I wanted to share this with you because everyone has a story. We all have stories, even the little baby, even a toddler, will always ask you, will always cry because want mama to feed. That's the story of the baby. And if you don't, if the mama doesn't, then you know the baby will continue crying. So in my case, well, I didn't cry, but the story starts in the rural part of Kenya. Have you ever been asked, do you have a story? What is your story? So my story today is about how nature is the best storyteller. And this started when I was still very young. And I would like you, if you, to figure out or to remember what triggered a story for you. It all began on a day, in the morning, that early Sunday morning. I had seen, or my job really when I woke up was just to go to the farm or to fetch firewood or even to the river, get some water. But later in the day, I would go out, join other boys as we went to take care of to tend for the livestock, for goats and sheep. Especially if we were young, it was only the little animals. But then, I had never left my village. I had never left before. I had never known beyond the little area that I lived. And so one day, in one mid-morning, while tending the goats and sheep, something so unfamiliar happened. In the distance, that drew our attention, myself and the other and my other friends. And this was a long line of dust that happened to be, which went very high up in the air. It was a blue, the dust was actually being caused by a blue car heading towards our direction. And on this narrow dirt road, really was covered in dust. So leaving the livestock behind, my brother and other boys, we all made a quick dash to the dirt road to witness the strange-looking automobile. That's this car. It got closer and closer, sending us, scampering away, scared of the noisy machine coming our way. We had never seen a car before. That was our first time to see a car. I had seen a tractor, but to see a car, a blue car coming our way, well, we would not take any risk. So we actually left, running away, especially with the noise that accompanied this particular car. Now, I learned later, of course, that it was a Volkswagen Beetle, which is popularly known as the Beetle. As it passed us, it blew so much dust that we'd never seen before, that it covered us all over our bodies. I could not recognize, inside actually, I could not recognize, personally, I could not recognize my friends. They were all covered in dust, even though we were a little further away. And we did, and this really caused us to figure out what was going on. He came and left quickly. And we later learned, we wanted to see who is the occupant of this car. Who we later learned was a Catholic priest whose mission was to talk to the villagers about starting a school in our village. We had never gone to school, so really there was no, we don't know what school was that time. So anyway, we learned he was on that mission to recruit people to start school. But then 2 weeks later, the deal had been sealed, and that families with children old enough to walk 5 miles should enroll them in school. But first, a 2-roomed building had to be constructed. A harambe to build the school, the classes was called, and within a week, 2 classes were ready for occupation. Where harambe means bringing your resources together, your strength together, and then build a communal project, finish a communal project like a school or even like a dispensary. And this was done. Unfortunately, well, I wouldn't say unfortunately, but we later learned it was not a good idea for us. We thought it was not the best thing. So the priest was to sponsor 2 teachers, writing books and pens, and then that's when it dawned on us that the priest was in fact on that mission to recruit us to go to school and live our lifestyle of going out there hunting or doing, grazing cows all day and back home again. So the most challenging assignment, therefore, was to convince students to settle and stay put all day in school when they had not learned to be so patient. You can imagine now you're being told, no, from now to today, before you go out to your bathroom, you have to raise up your hand. We never grew up that way. So kids had not been used to that. So we had we had to settle for it and forced to do that. So they had not been used, they had not really been used. They started, rather, kids would just run out in the forest. It became a very challenging situation. So what happened, therefore, is they started a feeding program which turned out to be a great success, but not after a little bit of coercion. Then a new development in our life was introduced. The school had to have uniforms for all the students. Now that really changed. Remember, the story right now is how nature can teach you or is the best storyteller. So therefore, the school had to have uniforms for all the students. The head teacher had identified a tailor, to make those clothes in the nearby town, which was nearby 15 miles away. I couldn't wait for my parents to break the news and set the day I was to be fitted. And when they did so, when that day came, I could barely fight my sleep as I waited for the following day, for that day to arrive. Well, it came. It was a long walk, the longest I've ever gone. And I had never walked that far. Now, we started at dawn walking through the valleys, forests, and through a wheat field. There was a big farm of wheat. I'd never seen so many people and so many cars, big and small. I was really in dreamland. Like, what is this? You can imagine you've never seen this many people. You always lived in the village, and all of a sudden, it's a new beginning. So we arrived at the tailor place, and he fitted me, and we started our journey back after a while as we followed the narrow, winding, dusty path through the wheat field. And that is where the situation, that's where now nature comes into view. As we followed this path, dusty, something strange I had never seen before caught my eye. There were these little creatures jumping from one place to the other. Well, they were in the same place, but they were all scattered everywhere. They were black. And I had never seen anything like this. And I'm just looking, and what is this? I actually got left behind by my parents. They were not, we still had a long way to go. So they had quickened their steps. But for me, I am just looking at this liberation of new things. And one of them was this creature that is jumping up and down, up and down. And as he did so, going up, he was small, but coming down about a feet high, about 1.5 meters high, which is about 4 feet high. He would come down, spread out. And I am amazed at how beautiful the dance is. He's jumping, and not one. Here, there, everywhere they were. And this caught me. That was one of the biggest things I've ever seen. I could not imagine something like that happening to me. Later I learned that this was actually Jackson's widow bird. This is the creature that I saw jumping up. And the idea of this bird was that this bird was actually attracting females. So it was a competition dance between all the males. Males are black. Notice the little, the female right there. They're brownish. And if they're not impressed, they will just fly away. So the males, poor males, they have to keep doing this until the female is impressed. But then, and of course, if the strength is no longer there for the male, so I watched all these, and in my head, I'm registering how this is amazing out here. So my parents looked back only to find that I had been left behind. I got myself yelled at a little bit but for me, I had seen something they themselves hadn't cared to see. It took me many years to figure out what that bird was, or what those black creatures were. Of course, they were the black widow, the Jackson's black widow. That's the bird. And then, as if that was not just enough, just as we came out to the edge of the wheat field, another incredible scene happened. Just like that. And this time was a creature that resembled the Volkswagen Beetle. Remember the beetle? The priest beetle? This time, it was the beetle. It was the priest who was being represented by nature in the form of a helmeted guinea hen. So this is the guinea fowl, or the guinea hen. And now this bird, notice that the back is, it has a hatch back. Now, because it was in the wheat field, I never saw the legs. To me, this bird was moving so fast and gliding through and did not have legs. So when this again became something, incredibly unique to me, therefore, that really baffled me, Steve. And again, after many years, I learned that it was actually the helmeted guinea fowl. Later that day, around the campfire, when we all sat, there was no TV. The TV is either you are singing or you're telling stories. So that day, it became my story. And it became, and what was so amazing is how serious I was telling the story that everybody is laughing. When I said, I saw a bird wearing a skirt, Everybody is looking at, for real, a bird wearing a skirt? Where on earth have you ever seen a bird wearing a skirt? I said, no, that is what I saw out there. It was a bird wearing a skirt, according to me. And they all started making jokes. Oh, was it green skirt? Was it black skirt? Was it red? And but for me, it was the most amazing. Actually, if you go to the YouTube and look for black widow bird or Jackson's widow bird on YouTube, you'll see what I'm talking about. They really have a great dance. But for the guinea hen, I said, guess what, friends? I saw a guinea hen. I saw a bird that looked like the priest Volkswagen Beetle. And everybody was falling by, laughing when I mentioned about the priest, the bird there. So that became my first storytelling. Thank you, everyone, for listening. My first storytelling, it was all about nature, mixing it with, mixing nature with me, and I just felt great. So thank you so much for listening. And for this and more, please log into Detroit Zoo website, detroitzoo.org. We have live and we have and also virtual dose of vitamin Z, virtual dose of vitamin Z. You'll be able to see all many other stories as our education team is bringing to you. Kwaheri, which means goodbye. You'll be able to hear more and more stories like this. Have a wonderful time.